Hi, and welcome to Transparent with Tina, a holistic approach for mental, physical, and spiritual well being so you can become the best version of yourself. Welcome to Transparent with Tina. I am so excited for this guest. And you know what's really interesting? Um, your team had reached out to me, I think a year ago, and my past assistant sent me this email recently and said, "Did you ever have an interview with this person?" And how crazy, but that's the universe working, right? Let me introduce my guest before we can get into this. My guest, his name is Kute Blackson, and he is a visionary, a thought leader. He is an author of two books, which is You Are the One and The Magic of Surrender. So welcome, Kute. So nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we made it happen.
Yeah, so amazing. And I was watching your videos yesterday and today. And like I said before we even got on, that you and I are completely aligned in how we view everything. So
Wow.
let's jump right in.
Wow.
How did you tell us a little bit about your journey and how
Wow.
you got into this field?
Yeah, I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana, my mother's Japanese. I grew up in London, so I'm from everywhere and nowhere and never felt like I fit in. And so that was a source of a lot of pain and I think drove me on a search for my own identity, which drove me, I think, on a spiritual search at a very young age in London. And so my childhood was a bit unusual, although I didn't know it at the time. My first memories as a young boy was seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor. She picks up the gravel, the sand that this man walks on, wipes it on her face and stands up. And so week after week, I grew up seeing miracles, blind people seeing and deaf people hearing. The same man whose sand she picked up would look at a person in a wheelchair and say, "Hey, why are you sick?" "I haven't walked in 10 years." "Do you believe?" "Yeah." Put his hands on them and they would stand. And so, this is with no YouTube, no internet, no social media. Um,
But how old were
I
you?
I was about 7, 8 years old, and I grew up seeing. And this man was my father, by the way, and so I grew
Oh,
up seeing
uh,
the miraculous, And so the thing was, it was not very special for me. It wasn't extraordinary. It was just
that was your normal.
It was
Yeah,
just very
normal.
normal.
Hmm.
Nothing that special, no fanfare. Just, yeah, my dad, we eat, we put our socks on, miracles happen, we go home. It's just life. And I
Yeah.
think that was a blessing because I grew up with a sense of the miraculous being normal and all possibilities being available. And so
Yes.
my father built 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa. He was a very spiritual man, very went to India in the 60s, had an awakening, had kind of an enlightenment experience. And so he was very mystical in nature. He built a huge church in London. When I was a kid, it probably had 4 to 5,000 people every Sunday that would come. And so when I was 8, my speaking career began because he threw me in the audience and said, "Speak." And that began my journey with speaking and communicating. And when I was 14, and I'd been speaking every 5 weeks, every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, my father would just throw me and say, "My son is speaking today." I'm like, wow, nobody told me. And something would happen to me, and it was like a channel was opened and words started coming out of my mouth at age 9, age
Yes.
10, that I didn't really understand, to be honest.
Yes.
But it started making me curious to try to understand like this thing that is happening. And so when I was 14, my father, it was a pivotal moment. My father announces to the congregation, like, "My son is taking over my ministry. He's my successor." And I'm shocked. My mother's shocked. Like, he didn't discuss it with me. And my heart sank because I knew that this was not my path. This was not my journey, my express. Something didn't feel right. But I think, like many folks, I felt I felt too afraid to speak my truth. My fear was if I really dared to speak my truth and be who I really am, then I'd lose my father, I'd be alone, I'd be an outcast. And I tried to fit myself into a box of being who I thought he wanted me to be. And so for 4 years, I wrestled this internal conflict of I want to make a difference, but it's not through this path. But maybe I can make a difference this way. And I just, after 4 years of being torn apart and feeling frustration and pain, I had some decisions to make. And meanwhile, this whole time, um, I'd be sneaking into my father's office in the middle of the night. and he had thousands of spiritual self-help books on his bookshelf, everyone from Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar to Jim Rohn to Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, Deepak Chopra to
Mhm.
the Eastern mystics of Krishnamurti and Osho. And so as a young kid, I just started to get obsessed and devoured these books, just trying to understand the nature of life. Who am I?
Mhm.
And why am I here? What is the purpose of life? And so this became my passion and my obsession. And whilst reading, I'd read folks like Jack Canfield and Jim Rohn and Mark Victor Hansen, and I realized, wow, these folks are in America and they are inspiring people, but it's not through the church, it's through like the seminars and their authors and that lit a light bulb. And I thought, this is what I want to do. And so when I turned 17 and a half, um, I had to make a decision. Do I go to university and follow the expected path for my life? And I could see my entire life set out for me, age 20, age 30, age 40. And I just felt like my soul dying
Yeah.
by following the expected path. I could be successful
Yes.
by the world standards, but if I
Yes.
didn't have myself, if I didn't have my soul, if I didn't have my truth, what do I have? And yet I felt my soul clearly guiding me to come to America, to go to California, to go to Los Angeles, to go into this field of personal growth and spirituality and self-help. And yet I didn't know anyone in this industry. I barely knew it was an industry. I just had some references of these self-help authors, and all of them happened to live in Los Angeles. And so this is why I wanted to come here and find these people, meet these people. It's like, I want to go into that field. That's my calling. And what people also don't know is we lived literally behind my father's church. There was an apartment attached to the church, and it was a tiny apartment. And every night I would sneak into my father's church with the lights off. I mean, probably from around age 11, with the lights off in the pitch black, and I would speak to the empty chairs, imagining I was giving seminars in hotel rooms across America, and imagining I was inspiring people, and I would visualize faces lighting up, and I'd visualize people being transformed. And I did this 5, 6 days a week, for a couple of hours every night, and this was my passion, so to speak. And
Hmm.
so I felt this calling in my soul, go to America. And I knew what this meant because this meant that I would need to speak to my father and renounce everything. And this was terrifying. And I
Hmm.
think sometimes when your soul guides you, it's usually very clear. Your soul does not care about convenience. Your soul does not care about comfort. Your soul cares about growth and evolution. And it often doesn't make sense to your mind, the guidance of your soul, because your soul is not limited to the past. It's not limited to your ego. It's not limited to your personality. It's the intuitive guidance of the soul arises from the deeper dimension of your being, which is unconditioned. And so when my soul said go to America, I thought, oh shit, this feels true. This feels real. And I had the conversation with my dad, and
And
it terrified me. I was heartbroken. I felt like I was letting him down. I felt like a bad son. I had to make peace with the fact I might never speak to my father again. And I'd love to say
wow.
everything went well, but my father's very old school African, iconic man, legendary guy. It's kind of his way. It's my way or my way. You choose. And I mustered up the courage to speak to him. I said, Dad, I'm not taking over. And I was terrified. Sometimes people think, oh, you need to be fearless. I was terrified. And all he said was, are you sure? I'll never forget those words. And I said,
Ah,
yeah, I am. We never spoke for 2 years.
no.
2 years. My heart broke. 2 years, my father and I did not speak. He didn't speak to me, I should say. And I felt the weight of his disappointment, but I knew in my heart that this was the path I had to walk. I knew in my heart that something bigger than myself was calling me, and I felt like I didn't have a choice. And if I was not obedient to my own knowing, my own calling, I would basically just be dying. And
Exactly.
yeah, and so I would just say that when your soul, if you follow your soul, this is what I have found throughout the years. If and when you follow your soul, you will always end up in the right place at the right time,
And the right
doing the right
people
thing,
and yes.
even though the path you take may not be the one you most expect. And so, long story short, spoke to my father, won a green card in the green card lottery, literally.
Uh,
And that's what brought me as an 18-year-old kid to the US, to Los Angeles with a green card, two suitcases, $800 in my pocket, following a dream, following my soul, following a calling. And I went and found mentors and teachers and studied with some of them and kind of evolved
and
from
what
there.
are the odds of you getting the green card in the lottery? I mean, that is
Almost
just a
millions, millions
sign
to
from the
one.
universe
Yeah.
pushing you forward once again. And this topic is really kind of what we're going to be talking about because this is the most important thing I think we could be talking about, okay?
Mm.
Because if we back it up, when we're born, like I said, I was watching your videos, I wrote about it in my first book. When
Wow.
children are born, they're right from source. They're connected to their intuition. They're connected to their soul. They're not afraid of anything. They know exactly what they want to do. Um, Fear is a learned behavior, right?
Mm.
Because children really aren't afraid of anything. And what happens is, as we both agree upon, is that when we get older and responsibilities and authoritarian figures or primary
Yeah. Yeah.
caretakers, they start directing your path. And
Mm.
we become in our head now. From
Mhm.
our heart, we're now all in our head. And I
Mm.
think that we are a society built on ego, which is in the mind. So
Yes.
if and there's no room for, like you said, miracles. There's no room
Mm.
for miracles when you live that way
Mm.
because it's all about fear. Well, I really want to do this.
Mm.
I'm in the process of this right now. So I mean,
Mm.
that's why another thing is another sign from the universe why I'm happy to be interviewing you this week
Mm.
because I'm going through that change myself, and it can be terrifying if you're just using your logical ego mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you listen, because everybody around you, especially people that have not achieved their dreams, and I think you'll agree with me, people that have not achieved your dreams, in my book, I write they're dream smashers. Don't
Uh-huh.
share your dreams with everybody because people that
Yes.
have not achieved them will find a way for you not to achieve them either because they know deep down, I feel, that they are missing their soul calling. And they are
Mm.
not, anybody that has stepped into their calling are supportive of everybody else rising.
Mhm.
It's the people
Mhm.
that are living in the fear and in the lack are the people that want you to kind of stay down here. And
Mhm.
you had the courage to go against your father, go to a different country and everything else. And I think that is really where we all want to be. But everybody's too afraid to rely on that because we're conditioned to believe just how are you going to make that happen? And that's one thing I want to talk to you about because I think the ego mind also says if you can't see a clear road from A to Z how that's going to happen, then I wouldn't do it. So let's say you
Yeah.
want to switch careers and
Yes.
you know you want to leave this one. Well, people say, well, don't leave that one until you have another one.
Mm.
And so you talk a lot about surrender.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we're talking about here, surrendering to your higher self, your true nature, your soul's calling. But we're afraid to surrender that.
Yeah.
Because what happens if it's my mind making tricks on me, or maybe I'm just daydreaming, or I need another, how about this? I need another sign. I need another sign.
Mhm.
And they get another sign, another sign. Because I think we're conditioned in behavior too, is because I deal with my clients all the time, and I used to be like this too. If I do 10 things right and I did one thing wrong, I'd focus on the one thing I did wrong.
Mm.
So let's talk about some ways that you can surrender and support this this part of yourself so you can become in alignment and bring out your gifts.
Yeah, I think we have to just kind of define what surrender means for folks to have the conversation.
Yes.
Because when you say the word surrender, I think that can freak people out, and they're like, well, "What do you mean surrender?" And surrender is bad, and surrender. There's so many negative connotations about surrender that are misconceptions. Surrender is giving up. Surrender is waving the white flag. Surrender means you're going to be a doormat. You're going to be taken advantage of. Surrender means you're going to be left behind. Surrender means you won't manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. Surrender means uh, you're going to get less in life. So why the hell would you want to surrender? And
Right.
so I'm actually saying no. If you understand the real essence of surrender, what if you didn't get less in life, but you actually got more? Not maybe not what you expected, maybe not the path you expected, but what if it was better? What
Yes.
if it was better than anything you could have planned with your mind? What if it was more amazing? What if it was beyond? And if you look at them, I think the most amazing things that have happened to you in life, most of it you did not plan. Most of it happened in the process of living life. It's like, wow, I couldn't have planned that. Wow, I couldn't have that vacation, that trip, it's like, I could not have imagined that. And so if most of it happened in the flow of life, why not open to living that way? And so I really feel that surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do.
Yes.
That surrender is the real secret to manifestation, that it is the real, it's the password to freedom. If you look at anyone that has achieved, anyone that has done anything great, anyone, Martin Luther King, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, anyone that's done anything great, at some point, whether they knew it or not in that moment, they reach the end of their own ego's capacity to make shit happen, to manifest. And they all had to surrender themselves to life, to the universe, to the divine, to the deeper calling. You look at someone like Gandhi, who was a successful lawyer, but there was something else for him that was seeking to happen that he could not have intended. He could have stayed a successful lawyer and had a nice house and just done his path, but there was so much more.
So much.
What if he didn't surrender? Said, no, I'm just going to do my life as I see fit, and yeah, have a couple of vacations a year, and have my house, and have my career, and have a car, which is great, by the way. But he would have been denying the deeper calling of his soul, and he would not have truly tapped into the highest potentiality for his destiny. And so, at some point, all of these great ones, they demonstrated, they showed us in their surrender, they transcended their human ego and their human limitations, and they tapped into another dimension of themselves, another dimension of life, the infinite possibilities. And that's when I would say life begins to use you. Life begins to express through you. Life begins to manifest through you. And so surrender, just to be clear, it is a letting go of control. Or I
Yes.
should say, the letting go of the illusion that we were even in
In
control in the
control to
first
begin
place.
with.
We think
Yeah.
we're in control, but we're really not in control that much. And so there's certain things we can control, but many things just we're not in control. So surrender is letting go of control. Surrender is a letting go of who you think you should be and the
Yes.
life you think you should be living, so that you can become truly available and open to what is actually seeking to happen. What is life seeking to express through you in a given
Yes.
moment? Surrender. So it's when you take the limitations off of life and you become completely available, truly available to the universe, to the divine, to allowing the intelligence of life, and you start allowing life to lead you. So the old, shall we say, ego-based model or way of living life is all about control and force and like make shit happen, go make it happen, go do it, go, which is great. You can manifest and create that way. But what I have found is at a certain point, whatever you create will be limited,
Yes.
because whatever you create from the ego will end up being limited in some way, because the ego is confined to the past, is confined to limitation. And so, yeah, you might create that way. Like, what do I want? That's the sort of ego-based model of creating. What do I want? And you might achieve what you thought you wanted, only to realize that what you thought you wanted was just what you thought you wanted based on who you thought you were.
And there was a
But
bigger plan for
and
you
there's
all
something
along.
bigger. And so
Yes.
the bigger question, it's a different question. It's a different game. It's a bigger game. You look at Mandela, you cannot plan that life.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go to a ghost setting seminar. Imagine Mandela in a ghost setting seminar. Yeah, I'm going to spend 27 years in prison. I'm going to come out of prison, be this iconic figure. That's not a life you can plan. It's
Mm-mm.
a life that unfolds from your own depth of surrender. And so the real question isn't simply what do I want? The real question is really about what is it that life is seeking to express through me? What is it that the universe is seeking to manifest through me? What is the universe seeking to create through me and unfold through me and express through me? What is the deepest truth of what my soul is seeking to manifest and create and express And to feel that, to listen to that, to attune to that, then you can bring your ego and your mind and your personality and your strategy and your planning and your resources in alignment with the deeper, authentic truth. Then you can give 100% without attachment. So you can say another dimension of surrender is giving 100% to what is true and what is authentic and what is real without being attached. Because it's when we're attached that we end up limiting life. It's when we attach that we end up trying to force life. And many times our goals of what we try to create and experience and manifest, our goals are evolutionary. They take us on a journey. They take you on a journey of evolving and learning and becoming. And that journey, sometimes the journey is the very reason for the goal itself, not the outcome or the goal. And so when you're
Yes.
truly surrendered, you're available to life. When you're truly surrendered, you're not just attached to it has to be this person, it has to be this goal. You're available to the journey and the evolution and the lessons. Because when you learn the lessons along the way, when you learn the lessons and become the person, you become more capable and available to the dream and the vision, the real dream, I should say, and vision that life has in store for you. And so that's to me the magic of surrender. We all want magic, but none of us want to surrender. And so I would say it's the key. And surrender can feel scary,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because to the ego, which is that sense of self that we mistakenly have believed ourselves to be based on name, body, form, identity, memories, past experience, belief systems, all of that, which is always changing, by the way, but we hold so tightly to that identity of who we think we are or who we think we were based on the past, and the degree to which we hold on to that tightly as this is who I am is the degree to which we will often be afraid of letting go, afraid of surrendering, because for the ego, surrender feels like a death.
Of
For the
course it
ego,
does.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
and that's why we hold on. The ego is really resisting, out of well-intended, but the ego is resisting surrender because the ego feels like it's dying. So if we can understand that, if we can understand the nature of the ego, that the ego is not who you are. The challenge is we've been conditioned to believe the ego is who I am. But when you understand that the ego is actually not who you are, it's not a thing. The ego is a process of identification. And the degree to which you're identified, the more you're an ego, but it's not a thing. A bicycle is a thing. The pedaling is a process. So the identification with oneself as me. That is ego. So when you really understand that you are not the ego, it's just a process of the degree to which you're identified, that can shift your entire relationship with the ego. And then rather than judging it or fighting it, or when you see your resistance, you don't have to fight it. You can start to meet your own ego with love, with compassion, with tenderness, with kindness, knowing that the ego isn't you, and whatever you let go of in the process of surrendering is not really you anyway.
Right. And what you said, when people hear the word surrender, they get a little scared of that, like they're giving up. Don't confuse surrender with settling. Because
Yes.
when you live in your ego mind, that really is settling. You're putting a ceiling and a cap on your life. There's no room for miracles. And also, I know we both agree on this. I think we get so attached to the outcome
Hmm.
and the goal. Okay. And as you said, the goal, maybe that's a goal from here to there, but maybe that's not your ultimate goal. That's
Yeah.
just a stepping stone to even a higher goal
Yes.
that we have. And you also had said in one of your videos about, I love this, that we live in a box. We have
Uh-huh.
become a society where it's so true. So there's no room for creativity when you live in a box, right?
Mm.
Why don't you explain a little bit about that? We live in our houses. We
Yeah.
have food ordered in.
Well, what's even from the beginning, we're born in a box hospital. We're born in this little
Yes.
box and put in a little cubicle box, and then we go home in a box, and then we grow up with all of this indoctrinated from the moment we're born. Then we go to school in a box, and then when we grow up, we wake up in a box, we eat from a box, shower in a box, poop in a box, go to work in a box, work in the box, type all day on the computer in a box, come home, we eat in a box, put our food in a box, watch the box TV, and then go to sleep. And like, why do I
And
feel so limited?
why do I feel so dead?
Yes, why do I feel
Why do
so
I feel
dead?
so
Why?
dead? And why do I feel like life's not worth living? And why do I feel like, oh, I can't handle this anymore? And you know what happened to me, Cute, because I was living that way for so long when I not, I mean, I've got your stage of surrender that I'm going to go to in a minute. The first one is beginning to question. And that was the first thing for me. And when I did get along the lines and I started to surrender, I had gotten to the point where I didn't even know what I like to do for fun anymore because my whole
Wow.
day was running from task to task to task. And
Mm,
then I was done with my tasks. I wouldn't know what to do with myself. So then I'd get bored. And I was one of those people. I'd go watch Netflix or something to zone out because I didn't want to feel the pain of not feeling alive, if that makes sense. I felt
mm,
alive to a certain degree while I was doing my tasks, but not fully. I mean, I just realized this recently, but then the gap after I got done with doing my tasks, I was sitting there going,
mhm,
well, now what?
mm,
Right? And the miracles were gone and any kind of aliveness that I felt very disconnected from my body. I felt like
yeah.
I was living outside of my body. I wasn't connected at all. So let's
Yes.
run through the stages of surrender. So the one is beginning to question. So if anybody out there that's listening is feeling a little unsettled and know that they feel like they deserve more. How many times have I said, like I have clients, how much do you want to make this year? Well, I'd be happy if I
Uh-huh.
made 200.
Yeah.
Well, why would you be happy if you made 200? What's wrong with 2
Mhm,
million?
mhm,
Oh, well, 2 million. It's just another zero. You know,
mhm,
this is how we keep ourselves in a box, right?
mhm,
And then this is where I really want to go with this too, is resistance is the second. Because as you said, the ego does not want to die. Also, what I know, because I've talked to a lot of brain doctors, is, our brain is always trying to conserve energy. So in doing that, it always wants to go back to what's familiar. Anything you bring something new into it, understand at first you're going to get met with resistance just because of the physiology of your brain is being like, I don't want to work that hard.
mhm.
But if you don't crack that open, it's like a closed door is a closed door. Like if
Yes.
you don't want to let love in again, well, you're not going to get hurt, but you're also not going to experience the joy.
Mhm,
Third one is beginning to negotiate with life. The pain is a signal that we are not telling the truth to ourselves. I love that. So let's talk about that. When we feel in pain, truth is everything. If we are not telling the truth to ourselves, we can't speak our truth. We can't be in alignment with ourselves. Uh, and we do, I don't know if the negotiate's not the word for this, but maybe comparison. Well, everybody else does it. And like when you were saying in your journey with your father, you were going to have to go against
mhm,
him and you were going to feel shunned. And this is the thing about breaking into a better version of yourself. You may have
mhm,
to leave situations behind. You may have to leave a job behind. You may have to leave friends behind. And I
mhm,
think that keeps a lot of people stuck too, because everybody else is doing it, right?
mhm.
So what would you say to somebody that's in the resistance and the negotiation stage?
Yeah, I would say the resistance is natural. The
Yes.
resistance is simply your ego's strategy of survival. The ego is freaked out. What the mistake that most people make is they try to resist the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And when you resist the resistance, you reinforce ego even more. And so when you feel the resistance, realize that underneath the resistance is fear. Your ego has developed. It's a beautiful thing. It's not your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Your ego has simply developed, number one, to protect you and keep you safe. Your
Yes.
ego was a creation in reaction and response to mom and dad and abuse and divorce and fighting and pain and this and that. And so we learned all sorts of strategies and ways to shut down, disconnect, and not feel, right? Ego started getting created as a way of dealing with the pain and surviving. It's like, I never want to feel that again. So I never want to be vulnerable again. I never want to depend on anyone again. Never want to, because my mom wasn't there, my dad wasn't. So I never depend on anyone. I don't need a man, don't need anybody. And so the ego's job is to protect you from getting hurt so that you never feel that again. It's well intended. It works for you when you're 5. It works for you when you're 10. The challenge is when you reach 20 and 25 and
Not
30
serving
and
you
40,
anymore.
it doesn't serve you anymore.
Yeah.
It's an outdated program that actually ends up limiting you profoundly. So if you recognize, the ego has a beautiful intention, it's just outdated. It doesn't work. But its intention is to protect me from getting hurt, and its intention is to reinforce its existence.
Yes.
This is the ego's intention. And so uh, it's natural. Resistance is natural. If there was
It
no
doesn't
resistance,
mean that that's not what you should do, is what
yeah,
you're saying.
yes, resistance is natural. So when you feel the resistance, it means you're moving more deeply to surrender because you don't feel any resistance sitting on your couch doing nothing,
Right.
right? But when you talk about surrender, letting go, so that means you're moving towards your edge and the ego's getting activated. So learning how to relate with yourself and relate with the ego rather than fighting it, learn to hold it, learn to
Hmm.
love it.
Hmm.
Learn to not meet it with judgment or
Yes.
shame or resistance. But if you can just hold your ego and simply love it and simply just be with it and surround yourself with love, then you'll find that the ego can relax and feel safe and slowly begin to open and unravel and let go. It's when you resist it, like, no, I got to kill the ego. That's when the resistance continues because really, the resistance is a sign of I'm afraid. I'm
Hmm.
afraid. So
Hmm.
when you can just meet your fear with love and compassion, the ego's fear can just relax a little bit. That's what's really key. Then, yeah, what we tend to do is we start negotiating. Well, maybe if I change myself, my husband will change, even
Hmm.
though we know that the relationship doesn't work. But if I just am more beautiful, more this, more that, more intelligent, then maybe he'll love me more. If
Yes.
I just, then maybe my job will get better. But so most of us, sadly, we end up negotiating our entire lives
It's
away
away.
until we're 50, 60, 70. Like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I just negotiated, making excuses for myself, for the other person, rationalizing why I'm not living my purpose. And then we're 65, we're
Yeah.
70. And
Yeah.
life is not that it's over, but it's like, wow, I wasted 30 years of my life,
Yeah.
40 years of my life negotiating, making reasons and excuses. The ego is so clever, it can negotiate and rationalize and make anything sound like a plan and anything sound intelligent and convince you and those around you that what you feel is true when truly it's not. So there comes a moment, though, after you've been negotiating, maybe I can keep eating those donuts and be healthy. Maybe I can keep smoking weed or drinking wine a bit excessively and raise my vibration and evolution and spiritual awareness when deep down you know that it's dulling your intuition. It's having an impact. Because the next level of your life, every next level requires the next level of you. The next level of you requires that you let go of everything and everyone that's no longer in alignment. The challenge is most of us, the ego holds on to what was no longer working and what's no longer in alignment, the people, the situations, the things out of out of comfort, out of preservation, out of security and survival. We don't realize that by doing this we are simply keeping ourselves stuck. We are
Yes.
blocking the next level of our blessings. And so we have to learn there comes a moment when you negotiate and you negotiate and you negotiate enough, there comes a moment where you realize no matter how much I negotiate, it ain't changing. No matter how much I negotiate, my husband is not changing. No matter how much I negotiate, my wife is not changing. No matter how much I negotiate, things aren't changing. This is what is.
Hmm.
That's when you can start moving into an acceptance. That's the next phase. It's
Yes.
only when you move into accepting what is as it
Is.
is that you can change it. The acceptance might be, you know what? I have an alcohol problem. You've been saying, no, I kind of like a little alcohol. It's not a big deal. No, no. I have an alcohol problem. No judgment, no shame, just
Mhm.
own it. I have a problem with marijuana. I have a problem with codependency. Or My husband is not changing. When you can just be with it and feel the reality of what is,
Hmm.
that is the beginning of surrender and that is the beginning of transformation. Now, most people, so accepting what it is. It's raining outside. I don't want it to rain. I'm not happy. But if you can't accept that, you're going to go outside and moan and groan and complain and feel like a
Yep.
victim and scream at God versus saying, okay, I don't like that it's raining. This is not my ideal, but it's raining outside. And if I can just accept it, then you have a choice. Maybe you go inside, maybe you have a movie night, maybe you invite your family for dinner and you make the most of it. So surrender, you see, is the open-hearted participation with life, is
Yes.
the open-hearted participation with the process of life. However, there is a key missing link that most people miss, which is why often they never really experience true surrender. They might move through these stages and come to acceptance that, okay, it is what it is. Okay, my husband is what he is. But between acceptance and between surrender, there is a phase that most people miss, and it is grieving. Most
Yes.
people do not allow themselves to grieve. You can't grieve something unless you accept it. You can't grieve that a relationship is over unless you accept it's over. So you have to go through the acceptance. But sometimes people come to acceptance and they just disconnect themselves and they don't allow themselves to grieve. And
Mhm.
they try to skip to surrender. If you don't allow yourself to grieve, there will always be a block in your heart that you will carry with you. So even when something new comes into your life, your heart won't be fully available to receive it, to surrender to it, to allow it, because part of you will be stuck in the past. So that phase, grief is the portal to true surrender. Grief is the bridge to true surrender. If you can allow yourself to accept, then you can move into allowing yourself to grieve. I would invite everyone listening to sit with, what have I not allowed myself to grieve yet? Maybe it's the end of a dream. Maybe it's the realization that I'm not going to be Tom Cruise in this lifetime. And I've been trying, but it's not working.
Mhm.
Maybe it's the end of a phase of your life of, wow, I'm not 20 anymore and I need to move into a different phase of my life. Maybe it's becoming an empty nester and your kids are moving on and realizing,
I have that.
wow,
Yeah.
I'm not as who am I now without my children? It's a whole nother phase. It's a death. I remember when I got married and I met my wife, there was a realization of, oh, wow, a grief of, as funny as it sounds, of not being a single guy anymore, and
Hmm.
a grief of that, and an acknowledgement of moving into a new phase. And so to truly surrender, you have to allow yourself to grieve the past, to grieve who you were, to
Yeah.
grieve what was, to grieve what wasn't. And when you can grieve, you can allow yourself to release the emotions, to release the feelings, to release the old energy so that you can clear your heart and open to the new.
And create space. And that's so true because when we feel uncomfortable and we feel too anger or sadness, and a lot of this happens in our childhood. I mean, I did exercises at inner child work and cutting the cord because what happens to all those emotions? If you
Yeah.
don't grieve them, they get trapped inside of your body. That
Mhm.
stuck energy, it's
Mhm.
not allowing it to move. And as you said, how can you create space or allow new energy in if your
Yes.
body is filled with stuck energy? Right?
Yes.
And I think there's
Yes.
a lot for us to grieve. I mean, whether it's in your childhood, you didn't have the father you wanted, you didn't have the mother you wanted, you didn't have the background. Everything it points to that. Absolutely. Um, you know, surrendering, you had said in surrendering that it is, we are hardwired physiology, physio-
Physiologically.
physiologically, I'm going to say it wrong. No, I mean, I thought it was very interesting because you said, for example, you breathe in, you breathe
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It's a natural thing to
Yes.
surrender. Our body is
Yes.
wired for that, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the fourth stage. The fifth stage is to acknowledge and surrender your grief. That was the last one. Feel the feeling fully. That's what I wanted
Yeah.
to get to, and that's what I was
Yeah.
saying. Without judgment, greater opening. This is releases. Oh, I love this. Okay, so you had said something like life is a classroom. We've all heard that expression. The universe, I love this, will test you right before you're about to get to the next level, and it's almost
Yeah.
like a classroom, right? You have to take
Yes.
a final test before you get into the
Yeah.
next grade.
Yes. And
right? And
that's how you know that you're often getting close to your breakthrough.
because
Because
what you're being really what testing, give me an example of that test.
right before you're about to graduate, like in the classroom, right? Don't know how it is in America, but right before you're about to graduate to the next, you usually have to take a class. You take your SATs. In the UK where I grew up, every end of class, you take a test to see where you're at and take a test to see what you've learned from the last year.
Yeah.
And so right before you are about to elevate yourself to the next level of your life, often situations and experiences and patterns from the past will show up in the
Ah,
form of that ex that you
yes, yes,
thought you
that
were
happened to
over,
me.
right? It's like
Yes.
that ex is, hey, you want to hang out? And you know he's bad for you. You know he's not right for you. And he sounds so charming. And it's like, that's the opportunity for you to transcend. That's the
Yes.
opportunity for you to say no to what you don't want and choose what you do want. That's the opportunity for you to truly align with your own integrity. These tests are transcendence tests that give you the opportunity to integrate and embody everything that you
You've
have learned in this
learned.
last phase of your life so that you can choose who you're going to be,
And it
choose what you want. And when you do, you come into more alignment, and that shifts your vibration to unlock the next level of your life. So those tests will often show up. So many times before the next level, the cravings, the feelings of addiction, people from the past show up, situations that kind of like, is she going to go back to is she going to do that thing she used to do, or is she going to do something
or
differently?
let's say you hate a job and all of a sudden you get offered a raise.
Yes, that might happen.
Same
Or
thing.
you hate a job and the ex-boss who you hated, the company calls you up and said, we want to offer you more money, and you know that career is not right for you.
Right.
Sometimes it might not even be that you hated the job. Sometimes it might be you know that you it's time to leave. You know it's just you've completed a cycle,
Yes.
and yet the temptation or the test shows up and says, we want to give you double your salary. But
Yeah.
you know it's so tempting, especially if there's nothing bad about it, but you know it's not aligned.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so those tests are opportunities for you to choose. Those tests are opportunity for you to transcend. Those tests are opportunities for you to choose something different. Each time you do, you shift and transform your life.
You
That's
shift
the
and
lesson.
transform. And what I have found out, Cute, is that when I do take that risk,
Mhm.
I'm always supported on the other end.
Yes,
People,
yes.
that's where the miracle happens. People,
Mhm.
because you've now entered a new phase in a
Mhm.
different vibration. So
Yes.
different people are going to show up. So, but you do have to let go of who was I had an interview with somebody and she said, you know what? I was willing to to die for this, to step into my gifts. And I think that's
Yeah.
really where it comes from because otherwise, as we started the interview, that way of living, you're dying a slow death or a fast death.
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes,
Right.
yes.
And holding on to what was just keeps you stuck because you've done a lot of videos on YouTube about what keeps you stuck and manifesting, but it really all points back to this.
Mhm.
And every time you say no to what you don't want, you say yes to what you do want. I love that you
Mhm.
said that too. And sometimes your goal is only one part of the puzzle piece, not the ultimate goal. Don't be attached to the outcome. I always say that. So, like when I have a friend that goes, they're dating somebody. Oh, well, I wonder if he's the one. Don't, why don't you
Yeah. Tell,
say
tell, tell him, tell him that he is the one right now.
he's the one, right? You know what
Yeah.
I say
He,
is what am I here to learn from this?
yeah. He's the one right now who you drew in as a mirror manifestation of some aspect of yourself that you most need to heal, integrate, and
It,
make peace with. So he's the one right now until he's not.
exact. And you know what I always say too is like when people have challenging situations, people, the ego mind loves to point the finger, judgment at the other person, make the other person wrong, make the situation wrong. And I always say,
Mhm.
where's the lesson? The lesson is always yours. It's not the other
Yes.
person's. If it's happening in your life, the lesson is your lesson,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so let's talk about you are offering a free course right now with 8 levels of gratitude. Let's just briefly touch on that.
Yeah, yeah. At the beginning of 2025, I created an 8 video, 8 module course called the 8 Levels of Gratitude because I realized that no matter what's going on in the world, which we often don't have control of, we don't have control of the president, the government, the world, the weather, your parents, family. We don't have control. But what we do have control of is ourselves. And I think one of the most powerful things that if we can learn to harness, uh, that will impact our lives the most is cultivating gratitude. And people often hear gratitude, 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 feel some gratitude. But yeah, how the hell do you do it? Like, I'm not feeling grateful right now. Like, I don't know where do I start? Okay, feel grateful for what I have. Okay, my socks, my shoes, okay, it's a start. But I wanted to create a process and a sort of step-by-step system that could help people clearly, intentionally access gratitude in their life almost systematically. And so that's what I call the 8 levels of gratitude. There are 8 levels of gratitude that if you understand and you use and you harness on a daily basis, it really only needs to take you 8 minutes or even less, right? But if you really cultivate gratitude, gratitude is the frequency of God.
Yes.
Gratitude is the frequency of the divine. And when you access gratitude, effectively you are in a high state of meditation or a high state of prayer. The first level of gratitude is the most basic level of gratitude. Number one, the first level is just finding gratitude for what you have. Just look
Hmm.
around. What do I
Hmm.
have? That's what most people think when they like, oh, let me do my
Right.
gratitude journal.
Right.
What do I have? I have a water bottle. I have a pen. I have socks. I have iPhone. I have a candle. I have what do you have? Because so many of us, we have so much, but we overlook it because we're so busy trying to manifest more. I want more. I want more. I want more. And that state of constantly wanting more keeps you in a loop of frustration.
Yes.
Constantly wanting more keeps you in a loop of anxiety, of stress. If you're able to just look around and just acknowledge what you have, in order to manifest more in your life, you have to start by acknowledging what you
What you
actually
do
have
have. Yes.
right now. And many of us, we are richer than we know. And when you can start by acknowledging what you have, you shift your energy into the energy and the frequency of abundance because you're no longer in lack. You're looking around and acknowledging what you have. And I believe that when you acknowledge what you have, you shift your energy and more, you become more magnetic to attracting more into your life. So the first level is gratitude for what you have. Second level is gratitude for what has happened in your life, right?
Mm.
Things that
Hmm.
have happened.
Hmm.
Meeting my wife, having a son, going here, going on a vacation, things that have happened. Third level of gratitude is the gratitude for what did not happen.
Mm.
When you can, most of us, we're grateful for what happened,
Yeah.
but we can't be grateful for what did not happen. That relationship that you really wanted to have happen, that you couldn't imagine living without that guy, and you're like, "Oh, God doesn't love me." Now you look back and go, "Thank God that didn't happen."
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the gratitude for the things that you wanted to have happen that didn't happen, the gratitude for that thing, the gratitude for not getting told, the gratitude for that relationship not working out, the gratitude for not having, gotten a parking ticket, whatever it might be. When you can be in gratitude for that, you are shifting out of a conditional relationship to life. Many times when things don't happen, we contract, we feel unhappy, we get mad, we feel cursed. We don't realize that often because we're looking from the ego's perspective. We can't
Hmm.
see the ego can't see the entire picture, the entire unfolding of life whilst we're going through it. We often only see it after the fact. And so
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah.
most of the time, yeah, we
Hmm.
see it after the fact. And so we often don't realize that often things not happening or manifesting is actually a blessing,
Yes.
is grace from the
Well,
universe.
they
We
say
are
that
being given
everything is either a
grace.
blessing or a blessing in disguise. So
Yes.
it's a blessing either way.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not able to see it in the moment. And so cultivating the gratitude for everything that didn't happen that you're aware of right now, it moves you into a different frequency in a different state. The other level, the fourth level, I won't share all the levels, but the
Uh-huh.
fourth level for now is gratitude for the lessons that you learned.
Mm,
People often
yes.
miss that. No one can take away the lessons that you have learned in your, they can take away your car, your house, your bank account, everything, but they can't take away who you've become
Who you've
and the
become.
lessons that you've learned. Every relationship, even if it was abusive, difficult, challenging, heartbreaking, taught you lessons. Every
Shaped you into
single
who you are
experience,
today. Yes.
every single experience is a learning and growth opportunity for your soul. And to me, real success is not the degree to which you achieved it or didn't achieve it. Real success is the degree to which you learn the lesson from why you attracted that situation or that person into your life. When you can learn the lesson with who you're with, where you are in that moment, that is the key that unlocks the lock to the next level
To
of
the
your
next
life.
level. Right. And there's some people that keep going through the same situation
All
every
lessons are repeated until learned, and you will keep
yes.
attracting to you the same
The same
situation.
people don't understand
Same,
it. It'll be a different
same,
situation, a different face, but it's the same lesson.
yeah,
It's
over
just
and over
again like
again.
school.
Yeah,
You don't pass the test, you have to stay back in the same grade, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
gratitude for what you've learned, and many of us don't realize, even though the relationship hasn't manifested, or the abundance, or the thing isn't there, you have learned so much. Look at
Yeah.
who you've become.
Yeah. We
The
have a
the
tendency to
wealth and the riches that you have from your life, of who you've become, is precious. If you could go back and give that advice to your 18-year-old self, we'd all be trillionaires.
yeah,
Our lives would be different. And so there is a wealth in consciousness and lessons that we have that is real currency
yeah.
that we should really feel grateful for in
Hmm.
in what we've learned. And so those are four levels of gratitude. There's another four levels that uh, everyone can go to www.8 the number eight levels of gratitude.com. Just enter your name and your email. You're going to receive an email. Definitely check your spam because
Check
sometimes it
your
goes to
spam
spam.
because I ordered it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't got
check
it
your
yet. So
spam.
yeah,
But the
check.
eight levels, the number eight levels of gratitude.com.
Hmm.
Enter your name and your email. You're going to receive every day. You're going to receive an email with a video
Okay.
that will basically teach you a specific dimension of the eight levels of gratitude, and it's changing thousands of people's lives around the world already,
Yeah.
and people's lives are shifting because I really wanted to make it so simple but applicable, and at the same time practical that can fit into your life. And so, eight levels of gratitude.com, you can access it there,
Perfect. And if you haven't watched him on YouTube, go to his channel. It's just Kute Blackson.
or
Um,
Instagram.
and Instagram too. Yeah, I was watching most of them on YouTube. But such a pleasure having you today. You are just such an inspiration, and I know that my audience is going to get a lot out of this. I did. I just appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you all for being here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and I will see you next week. Thanks, Cute.